Hold on. Keep going.
Hello. Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh, come on. You didn't want to be a part of the recording?
Hello, come on.
Hello, guys.
Here, guys. Hello.
Yeah, safe travels.
Hello,
Mitch.
guys. Have a nice day. See you later, alligator.
Kisses. Adorable. Children these days. What you gonna do?
Okay. Hello?
Hey, welcome to the party, gang. You guys just missed it. I had 3 like high school age kids come and Zoom bomb the call.
Hey, Jeremy, I'm a high school kid too, and that bounces. Lol. Nigga Guitar RP.
Oh yeah, you too, Holger?
Lol, ja, me too, yeah, fuck that shit, man. Lol, Guitar RP muss auch mal sein, Digga. Sex mit Kindern. Lol.
Oh, all right. Well, take care, man. Have a good time, all right?
Have a good time. Ciao. See ya. I'm still here. With the cock in my mouth. Lol.
Cheers, bye.
Hau rein, Michael, Digga, ich lieb dich.
Ade.
Sex mit Kindern, Digga, ist auch ein bisschen geil. Junge, kriegst du mich jetzt oder nicht? Jeremy Eck.
Oh, Lordy.
Sorry, Jeremy, I don't understand what just happened. What was that?
High school kids Zoom bombing. So they're adolescent children that don't have things to do, and so they think it's fun to come hang out on Zoom calls that they find in Meetup, and to be disruptive. So
Okay,
good
interesting.
times.
And he's German, so I'm sorry for him. No?
What you gonna do?
He's German.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, you know, as everybody knows, Germans are bad people. No.
Yes, you know.
Oh, sorry, that was a horrible joke, but
Not every German. Only a few.
Yeah, exactly. Just
we all know the name of them.
Right, exactly. Everybody knows the names of the bad Germans for sure. This is the Wise Crowds design call. All disruptions aside, we're here to try and help each other learn and make use of liberating structures in our practical context. We've had some good vibes, hopefully exchanged in terms of how we make decisions. And now as we lean into the Wise Crowds design portion, what we're going to do is we're going to make use of this liberating structure, Wise Crowds, in order to give and get help. Philip's been here, Eileen has been here. Michael, have you used Wise Crowds before?
This is my first time.
Cool. Well, Wise Crowds' structure bears a lot of resemblance to Troika Consulting. And so it's one of these give and get help patterns. So as soon as we boot up here, what we're going to do is someone is going to take on the role of client for us. And that client is going to take 2 minutes to sort of ask for help. You know, tell us about their design challenge, how and where they want to apply liberating structures. And then the rest of us will take on the role of consultant. And consultants will take a few minutes to ask clarifying questions. So we'll take about 3 minutes to say, tell us a little bit more about this, tell us a little bit more about that to our client. And then the client is sort of going to leave the call metaphorically. They're going to turn themselves on mute and they're going to turn off their webcam. And then what they're going to go ahead and do is just listen, importantly, while the rest of the group has a conversation about the client's design brief. And then after about 8 minutes of listening, we'll invite the client to come back into the call, turn their mic back up and their webcam, and to share, hey, what was it that they found particularly useful or valuable in hearing that consultation from the consultants. And then I don't know that we'll have time today. Ordinarily, we would rotate. We'll see if I get news about this session or not. But that's the basic procedure. Is there any questions, or can I help clarify anything about that?
So the client describes his problem or challenge or whatever. Huh?
Yeah.
His questions on, and the wise crowd all here 3 minutes only hearing.
Yep.
And after the 3 minutes, they ask clarifying questions.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. And then the clarifying questions we do for about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then after the clarifying questions, the client is going to turn themselves on mute and turn off the webcam. So they're going to sort of leave the conversation, but importantly, they'll listen, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of us will have, whoever's left in that consultant role will have a conversation. And then the client will come back after about typically 8 or 10 minutes and say, oh, that was interesting, or that was less than interesting, or this was the interesting part, something along those lines.
Okay, understand.
Cool. So
and then Jeremy, do you have to leave at the top of the hour? Is that what I heard at the beginning?
Yep, that is the state of the art of my understanding. That I may.
Okay.
So until there's clarification on that, we'll just assume that that's the case. And on your mark, get set, race. So who has a design brief? Does anybody have something for us to work on?
I definitely do. I'm desperate to get to this group. So
Yeah, Eileen's been having we had some scheduling challenges to get Eileen here.
yeah, I don't think it was plural, Jeremy. Okay, so my situation is that I'm kind of making some amateur mistakes with LS, I think, and there's sort of two issues. So I took 14 people to Costa Rica for a week, and I just got in last night. And there's some things as it's fresh in mind, because I'm going to be doing this twice a year, that I want to do. And so one of them is that we were doing Troika, and I just noticed about halfway through that people weren't following the directions. They weren't turning their back. They were bringing up multiple issues. And one of the men, like when they were having the discussion, said to this other woman, well, you're not obese, you're just overweight. And it was like super cringy for me to like kind of overhear that. Like, and so I'm not sure I'm kind of doing enough to set it up right and put up a little more guardrail. Because they just weren't, everyone else was doing it, but this group of people, maybe 3 out of the 14, just consistently like weren't listening, or just whatever they were doing, they weren't doing it. So I was trying to mix them up, but they were really unwieldy, I found. So that there was that. And then I had forgotten to tell people to bring their notebooks so that when they're getting turning their back, they, that's where all the meat is and the juice, and they didn't have their stuff with them to write. So I think I know how to fix that. So there was that problem that I don't know how to fix because the other people got it. And then the second thing was sticking the landing, like the very last day of like day 6 of the 7, like where we're kind of leaving the next morning. And I just did this exercise about, what's the learning? I kind of reviewed what we did and sort of what's the learning. And I just sent people off in pairs to talk about what do they really want to take home, or pairs or threes. It was kind of loose. It wasn't a real liberating structure. And then they came back, and people just were not very I think we did 2-4 all, and people were just not very sherry about that. And then I had them write a letter to their future selves about what, that I'm going to mail to them in 6 months. And so, it might have just been more of a private thing for people, but it wasn't very, I don't know, there wasn't a lot, I was able to pull out of them. So these are a lot of, cardiologists, psychiatrists, people that are really sciencey. And so they were very worried about it being woo-woo. And so there was no woo-woo in this. And so I didn't want to ask anyone to draw or do something, that would make them uncomfortable, this crowd. So I need some help with how I stick a more powerful landing. And I do want to say, Jeremy, that I did a liberating structure almost every day. And I can't tell you how successful this was. Like, it was just, my heart is so full. It was so powerful. And I did very little, actually. So there's that. Yay, liberating structures.
Yeah, I like that. I did very little, actually. Like, yes, that's my favorite part of every workshop is me just standing around with my hands in my pockets, like, just waiting. Being bored.
Okay, and just one more piece of that. On all the evaluations, they wanted to hear more from me. Again, the talking expert. So that was interesting too. What do I do with that?
Cool. Clarifying questions, consultants.
Well, first of all, can you give us a bit of a context for this, because it's very piecemeal for the moment.
I decided to experiment with seeing if I could get people in healthcare to get out of their lives after COVID and kind of reset and kind of really focus on their own well-being. And I got 14 people to come and meet me down at this beautiful place.
So what was the invitation?
It was in my blog. I have a wellness pearl, and it just said, come to a Costa Rican post-COVID reset.
Okay, and so it's people from your area or people from
All over the country that prescribe to my blog. They know me, they've heard me speak, they've enrolled in my blog, they've said yes to me. So they all knew me and I didn't know them.
Okay. They all knew you, although you just said that they wanted to know more about you.
They wanted to hear more from my expertise.
Okay.
Like I was one day, I spent about 10 minutes explaining adult development stages, and they were completely raptured. They wanted more of that. Like kind of, maybe it was more framing, I think, is what they weren't wanting. And also the other challenge was there were strangers. There were some sisters, there were people that knew each other well and others that didn't know each other. And then my neighbor was there. So some people knew me really well, just a couple, and they're strangers. So it was a very hard group to manage. I would prefer to have all strangers come. That's not what I got.
Okay. Well, and so they were from different backgrounds, like were they, you said that they were professionals?
They were almost all like some kind of healthcare.
Yeah, but wait a minute. If you have a surgeon that is a surgeon of the heart, it's not the same thing as if you have a nurse that helps
Right.
people get around. So what kind of a mixture did you have?
It worked. We had about 6 nurse practitioners, but faculty, doctorally prepared, a couple of nurses, a social worker, 3 physicians, and it just somehow worked.
Okay. All right. So you had 3 physicians, you had 2 social and you had 6 nurses. Yep.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And okay.
Any clarifying questions, Michael?
This sounds very professional to me, and I think I don't have so much experience to understand what's the problem in this case. What?
Well, there's 2 things that I've heard, and actually, Eileen, we'll have you skedaddle, and
Okay.
we'll just chop it up. So there's 2 problems that I heard. One was around like disruptive participants. So she mentioned that she had a subgroup during a couple exercises that that just didn't really want to go with the program and sort of what to do about those in those situations, which and then there was this additional question also about the end, how to sort of finish such an experience and how to stick the landing, I think was the word she used. And I think there's also this additional question, which is how to properly integrate sort of expert perspective or sharing information in these types of environments. So that seems like our sort of our ask here is those sort of questions. And I don't know, man, especially around disruptive people, I think part of me goes, fuck them, like really. Like if you don't want to follow the program, like I'm definitely not gonna, I definitely don't want to spend much of my relational capital on like wrangling people into things that they don't want to do. That feels like a pretty like counterproductive use of time. I tend to take a sort of like optimistic perspective that like, you know, hey, look, if these nerds don't want to do the thing, then at least they're, you know, only wasting their time and maybe the time of the person that they're paired up with that is, you know, that they're paired up with. But from the perspective of the group dynamic, that's pretty isolated. Anybody else?
Well, there are many ways you can go about that. You know, you can take them aside. You know, you can if you can try to talk them into, you know, being at least if nothing else neutral, or to try to interest them into the, you know, basically talk to them and be honest about it. So that I think that would be one way of dealing with it. Another way I think would be to really understand the purpose of this thing, which for me it's not very clear yet. You know, it's like, okay, so you bring a few people somewhere to talk about well-being, but on what ground? What's the purpose? You know, like, because for example, in the purpose is there the mention of the liberating structures and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and why we're doing it like that, and you know, like an invitation about details about how it's going to be organized, because the more the clearer you are into the invitation, the better it is. And my last advice is to make sure that the invitation is going to the right people. So when you get a response to your invitation, it's good to talk to the people before the thing is definitely set. So it's nice to. It's a very, you know, the people have to be the right people, and I think it's your responsibility to make sure that the right people.
No. It's on to clarifying expectations, right?
Yeah, and the purpose.
Yeah, the purpose. Right.
So, you know, Eileen is the host.
Yeah.
So it's about hosting, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, who do you invite to sit down at your table?
Yeah.
So if you're doing it random, maybe you want to find a way to minimize the randomness.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to make sure that you try to get the people that are going to be happy about the whole thing and constructive about the whole thing, and more than that, really concerned about the invitation.
And starting with 9 whys and giving them the option to exit, not to leaving this, because this is also the option they have, not only to disturb or to don't go with them. It's okay when they leave.
That's interesting as well. I like the suggestion of 9 whys generally. and the whole pattern around purpose to practice also comes to mind, right? To perhaps do that initially with the group to sort of help reveal what the expectations are and what the desires are for the space. And especially so around this topic, that if we might be able to predict, like, divergence, maybe an amount of divergence, I can also think that heard, seen, respected might be a particularly good structure to sort of bring in. And also, like, in order to enable that conversation, I really like 9 whys of revealing, helping folks to reveal to one another what they hope to get out of the space, because that might also help generate some clarity that can help us get to some form of like social pressure about, hey, are we in the bubble or out of the bubble? And I also like this possibility around like escape valve, so to speak. Like, so how might we be able to set up an explicit expectation for folks that are going, you know what, I'm just not feeling it. How might I be able to check out in such a way that sort of preserves both the integrity of the group? I mean, this is the impossible space, right? How do you preserve the togetherness of the group, but also give people the opportunity to say, I'm going to be, I can predict that I'll be a disruptive presence if I continue to participate. So, anybody else?
Well, one thing that I think could be done is like when you invite the people, I think a lot of things has to be done for the invitation. If you want to you have to work on the invitation, and the invitation is not just a few good ideas or things that people want to do. There is this form of commitment, and the idea would be to use liberating structures before it ever starts, as a way maybe to have people feel really what they want to do and then therefore commit. So when you're talking about the 9 whys, I think that one thing that Eileen could do is okay, well, she invites everybody to have a sort of like pre trip liberating structure string, where people will be able to, before they commit.
Yeah.
So when they do commit, it's easier than the whole, because when you have to take a plane, you're in Costa Rica, and you don't want to drop at that moment. You want to drop just before that.
Yeah.
If you're not interested, or if you see that the people that you're with are not interesting to you, or whatever, So you do a string like we're doing now, like maybe an hour, where you invite all of those who have answered positively to your invitation, and you just talk about it, what you want, how do you want it, and P2P is great. You can have and you can even invite them to design the trip. So some people might say, well, I would want Eileen to speak more, or to speak. I mean, I've followed her blog, and I'm really interested in that idea, and then you can turn it into a liberating structure string afterwards.
Which brings up a really interesting, I like this idea of like pre-event like call, and sort of set expectation settings, and sort of collecting information from the group about what the desire for that space is. And coming back to this idea around like how to deal with people wanting more information, I think I'm also being encouraged into this space. I don't like presenting information because I think it's generally a boring format, and I almost expect to lose people when I talk too much. Like I expect that I'm hard to follow, and the more I talk, the worse that gets, actually. But people are encouraging me. So the ideas that I've been exploring around that space is like, all right, short time boxes. right? So how do I contain the lecture down to a window of time that is, 15, 20 minutes tops, and then combine that 15, 20 minutes with some form of like exercise, whether that be like a user experience fishbowl where people are sort of gathered together in small subgroups so they can discuss what that lecture or that conversation has been about, and maybe come back with additional questions to sort of fuel the sort of Q&A. So that might be one possibility space of like thinking about how you can play around, especially with those two patterns, the celebrity interview and the user experience fishbowl. I think that it's not definitely not a liberating structure, but the idea around satsang, right? This question and answer sort of thing, ask the guru, also sort of comes up in response to that, to also ensure that that I'm not just delivering information because I like that information or it's part of my shtick, but that the question is sort of alive in some way.
So
Anybody else?
what did you say? What was the last thing? Was it a structure?
Oh, not really.
Okay.
Maybe in a virtual way, because now the clients follow her blog and they know her, so she can not writing a classic invitation like email. I invite you, and here your invitation things. Maybe she can set up a chat and do something on this chat, a chat invitation, which means she pings that and asks the client for a response for several questions or something like that. No?
Some form of intake for sure. But I noticed that also brings up this, as we're putting a lot of time emphasis on the front half, that question of like how to stick the landing is also like, how do we do that? How do you sort of finish with a nice bow on things?
Well, I think that it all depends on the dynamic during those 6 days. You can't, celebration is always a good thing to do. It doesn't have to be trite, but it can be real. So that's a nice thing. Like they say when you're taking some fitness thing online, they say, honor yourself for showing up. There's since it's well-being, it's maybe it's something about honoring oneself, about all this matters basically.
Yeah, and that there's also something in there that I think, all right, she mentioned she didn't want to get any like woo-woo type of vibes, but I think there's also I don't know, man, there's a notion called audience capture, that if you play to what people, the expectation of what your audience wants, then you're sort of stuck in a box that doesn't include things that people don't know they might actually enjoy.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? Thank you for bringing this up, Jeremy, because this is the first thing I wrote down. I just wanted to tell Aline that she said, I don't want to do drawings and things like that because it's a little weird, or I don't know, or if it's people not used to it or something. Well, I did that. I had the same kind of crowd, people from hospitals, people from various institutions in health and social services in Switzerland, which of all places is extremely rational. And I asked them to draw things. And at the beginning, of course, there was this little smirk, it's like, oh yeah, well, And at the end, if you do drawing together, for example, you have tremendous on a good prompt. Michael, do you know drawing together, the liberating structure?
Yes.
Well, if you have that structure, this can open up endless not endless, that's the wrong word, but very interesting and beautiful dialogues and conversations, because people are commenting the drawing that somebody else did, right? And if the prompt is right, that could be, by the way, a very good way to finish the 7 days, you know, and have a really nice discussion and shock them a little bit. But what I want to say to Eileen is that they really enjoyed it in the end. They really didn't realize how worthwhile it was and how fun it was. So fun is a good thing.
Yeah, and fun can also feel awkward.
Well,
I mean, it can. I mean, that's part of the invitation to play, right? So in terms of larger framings that might help, an invitation for playfulness, especially into that space where, you're not sure how people might react, could be helpful. And there's one around this idea of how to close or sort of finish things off. There's one method that has an exercise that I think is pretty good, that focuses on two aspects. So one is around appreciation, and what is it that you appreciated from this experience, and how might you transplant that appreciation, manifest or take part of it home with you. So what are the things that you could do, sort of 15% solutions on how to bring more of that thing that you appreciated in this context into your day-to-day environment. And the flip side of that appreciation also being like the placeholders for the stuff that you didn't quite get to. So especially in a group context, some things might pop up that you don't want to take home with you, right? Just little weirdnesses and things that are slightly left unresolved because of the group dynamic. So how to also put a placeholder in those to be able to leave those in the context of their origin and not sort of take back these weird feelings into your local context.
Can you give an example of that? Because what kind of placeholder do you have in mind?
Well, we usually call it loose ends, literally. So that could be as simple as saying, something that happened over the course. So let me contrast it with what it's not. It's not about creating any form of resolution and sort of finishing things, but it's literally just speaking out loud. Something happened, let's say, I was stuck in a group, in a pair with somebody who didn't want to do the exercise, and I found that frustrating, period, right? That was an experience that I had, and I want to leave that here so that I don't take any of that residual frustration with me. But we've been rambling on and on and on, doing this mansplaining thing. So I want to invite Eileen back to come give us her takeaways from our consultation before we wrap.
Okay, well, first of all, I feel completely held by you all, and I wish you were with me there, because it was just incredible how, I realized in this conversation that I just took all takers. And I was really nervous about it because I had this neighbor who doesn't, says out loud she doesn't like to participate. And I was saying, you have to participate. This is not a vacation. This is like a program that we're doing. And the fact that I just kind of, again, this whole program is about agency, and I left mine on the table. I get to handpick who comes. I love the idea of the Zoom call when I put the announcement out, and this is what it is, and this is what you have to commit to, bringing, something that you're actively working on, participating in small group work. That's just incredible. So, I was just thinking about the sticking the landing, this last part of the conversation about how we watch the sunset every night, and that could be, as the sun goes down, we just all say even all at once, like what we want to leave here. It's just beautiful to ritualize that. And that doesn't seem too silly to me for this group. No, there's so many actionable things about the invitation, particularly Philip, and looking at my materials and making sure it's really clear about what we're doing and what this is, because the cardiologist came with his psychiatrist wife, and he didn't even know what he was signed up for. He just was told to pack his bags and go. So I need to do a much better job. And I did have an intake with sort of 2 questions that only half the people filled out. And that has to now going forward be unacceptable. No, this is, if you want to come, I need information. And it was so minimal and I didn't even get that. So the idea is my standards need to go way up. And I really can't believe how helpful this is. The 9 whys about why you want to do this. And I did realize that on this trip, there was a lot of people that were, you know, self-regulating really well. Their lives were good. They were fit. They were pretty happy in their lives. And there was a group of about 5 or 6 people who were very heavy. They were lonely. They were really struggling and much more fragile. And I thought those were more the people I want to work with, because the low-hanging fruit, like it's just that's actually the ideal client for something like this, not the people that are already doing all the things. So that's a whole thing too, that as you were talking, I realized about taking much more control about who's involved in this. And that way I'm put at ease. Yeah. Beautiful. So helpful. So wise. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's the method. I mean, no, actually, let's take credit. Michael, Philip, we are wise men. That's all there is to it. Look at the gray hair that we're accumulating between us. Thank you very much for your time, attention, and energy, gang. I've got to get running. So this has been the Wise Crowds design call today. Michael, hope to see you back, man. Come bring us your design brief. We'd love to help consult.
Okay. Yes. Thanks.
Thank you all so much. I so
Okay,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Bye.
the day.
Enjoy
Cheers.
the day too.
Safe
Bye.
travels.